Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
To
Full house, eh?
Record Sports Hotline Live here in the flesh.
It's amazing what a couple of pints will do.
I know. By the way, just so everybody knows at home, I'll just explain this. Because John Terry went down to claim the award for Hotline Live on behalf of everybody
We
else.
should have the trophy in here.
You should have your strap on.
I should. Listen, Terry was in the starting 11. I'm in the starting 11.
Aye.
Doesn't it work?
So I've organised a Hotline Live night out so we can go and watch the UEFA Cup final, which could be spectacular. It could be a car crash, but either way, Hotline Live are going out to celebrate. Not just Daniel. Daniel will probably hold up a trophy at some point, Scott, you very well imagine.
Goes with the territory.
But the bottom line is, because I've managed to set all this up, for the first time in about 3 months, the two of you come into the studio. Smelling the pints.
As Scott says, it's amazing what a couple of pints can do.
We should have done a couple before it. That's a problem.
That's
Made a better show.
Hotline Live After Dark.
Hotline Live Unzipped.
Scott in the comment section, he says, sorry, not Scott, you're Scott. Look, Sky.
Have you had a couple already?
He says, everyone's waiting to hear about the famous Glasgow Rangers, and in a way, he's kind of right. The Rangers managerial merry-go-round is showing no sign of abating. Keith,
Managerial madness it's becoming.
You put a story online not too long ago, Keith, on Record Sport Online.
Yeah, because the club is adamant that not only do they not have a preferred candidate, that no contracts have been offered, no offers are on the table, any of the candidates, and no appointment is likely, no appointment is imminent or expected to come this week. So Rangers fans that have been kind of clamouring for this, there's kind of people out running about all over Glasgow Airport and surrounding hotels trying to find Steven Gerrard. We're getting duff information.
We're absolutely demented.
You're trying to filter information from all corners, and more than half of it's rubbish. Do you know what? I think Scott and I will both be happy. Really not interested, not so bothered about the identity of the guy, just want the thing finished. Pick somebody, get on with it.
It's kind of, we were talking before we come on air.
It's madness.
It's interesting, the kind of, from the journalistic point of view, the stuff that you have to go through at times like this when it feels like nobody knows.
Scott and I were discussing this earlier. Do you know the worst thing? But I remember, see the night we were in here and we broke the 49ers takeover story. I know that we were sitting here and people out there back at home would be like, heard it.
Aye.
And you know that, so there's an air of cynicism. And then you start getting the stuff, and it's actually possible, even though you've totally fact-checked, even though you know it to be 100%, there's a phrase, belt and braces, secure, somebody will say something somewhere, and next minute you'll start second-guessing and think, was that right?
Social media has changed everything in
Yeah.
that regard, isn't it? I mean, it's totally changed everything. You end up getting caught up in stuff that you read online.
Chasing down rabbit holes, all this sort of stuff.
Constantly have to remind yourself not to believe everything that you see.
I was saying to
online.
Keith last night, folk would have seen, but it was a thing about some Italian website put out Jurgen Klopp's the new Roma manager, and it got picked up everywhere. By the end, BBC Sport had it. Breaking news, new Roma, and it was just nonsense. Yeah, it just shows you it can catch fire.
It's dangerous.
That is dangerous. And you wonder why people talk about mainstream media, and we get a bit of a hard time. But if you fall into traps like that, it's no wonder. But no, in terms of where Rangers are at just now, this is the party line. Now you can listen to it, you can wonder if it's true, you can take them at their word, whatever you like. Personally, I think that they'll probably just want to take a bit of heat off. But I do find it interesting, Scott, that they're kind of briefing, they're wanting it out there so their own supporters know or think that there's unlikely to be something before the weekend. I'm astonished by that for a number of reasons. One, if you've not got anybody sorted out and kind of, nailed down in the position, why did you let Barry Ferguson, why did you rush into an announcement on Barry Ferguson Because what you've done there is remove a safety blanket.
Aye.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, even if you've got 5 candidates and you can't get one of them over the
exactly,
line,
what
you
do you
can
do?
turn around to Barry Ferguson and say he was always the guy we wanted.
Right after the Hibs game as well.
Yeah.
Just
It just leaves that kind of vacuum, doesn't it?
I've got a theory on that one as well, you know.
go on. This is the place for it.
Well, I don't know about you, Scott, but I wonder if Barry Ferguson might have been of a mind to tackle the biggest issue that they've got at Auchenhowie just now, which is the recruitment. I wonder if he expressed a desire to make kind of radical changes to some of the personnel and the way it operates in there. And he'd be quite right if he did, by the way, because recruitment has been consistently the biggest problem that Rangers have had behind the scenes. So you wonder then if maybe Niels Coppen has made some, you know, inroads into getting around the guys that are taking over the thing. You wonder if it actually became a case of, well, you know, the two of them can't coexist, so one will need to go. And if they're back in recruitment and they're back in Niels Coppen, well, it certainly feeds into, Scott, as you were talking about the other day, the fact that somebody somewhere, even though they don't have a preferred candidate, they've made no offers and there's nothing imminent in terms of appointments. Somebody somewhere is deciding who's staying and who's going out the squad.
Aye.
That suggests strongly to me it's recruitment. And I wonder if there's been some sort of a, you know, decision made that you either go this way or you go that way, you can't go both. And it looks to me as if maybe Niels Coffin has won that particular battle.
Would that be Kevin Thelwell's decision?
So I was going to say, surely it would be Kevin Thelwell, the players released the other day, you'd have thought, eh?
Aye, I mean, it sounds, and I don't disagree with you, but that sounds as if Kevin Thelwell, because we know he's spoken to Barry Ferguson at length, it sounds as if, to me, he's made the decision, says, no, we're going to stick with this.
And stick with Niels Coppen and stick with recruitment the way it is. Well, see if that's right.
Which is a concern.
See if that's right. That's a major issue for any Rangers fans that are watching this tonight. Because the Rangers fans know themselves, the biggest issue consistently over a sustained period of time at Rangers has been the shambles that is the recruitment department.
Absolutely.
So, look, who knows if and when they find a manager who can lead from the front and bring people with them and get people to fall in behind, and then also command the authority to say this isn't good enough, that's not good enough, that's not good enough, then, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're stuck with what they've got at the minute. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be, I don't think it would be the smartest move in the world to throw all your eggs in the same basket, because the eggs keep falling out of that particular basket, smashing all over the floor.
In terms of the kind of the party line that's coming out of the club, I mean, there's probably two kind of ways to look at that. One is, and you'll know this, the club always likes to have the media feel as if the media is a couple of steps behind. So you can maybe think, right, they're coming with this party line, that means they're probably further ahead than what they're making out in the process. Mm-hmm. The flip side of that is, of course, if that party line's right, then you can come to the conclusion
they don't know what they're doing.
Do they really know who they want?
Aye.
No, how far on
Aye.
are they? I mean, how many candidates have they spoke to?
It's starting to feel, Scott, a little bit like they're a rabbit caught in the headlights on this.
It does feel that way, but aye.
And you can understand that in many respects, because new people, new into the environment, new into the situation, but they're starting to make decisions that you're finding curious to understand the reasoning behind it, the motivation behind it. And then you kind of come to a conclusion, and because we're old cynics and we've been round these things, round this block so many times, you do start to reach the conclusion at some point, do they really know what they're doing? Mm. And Rangers are in danger if they let this run on for too much longer, because, as Scott said the other night, the new season is almost upon them.
You're talking about weeks
They
really?
really don't have time to mess around with this. And when they moved as quickly as they did to remove Barry Ferguson from the equation on the Sunday, I genuinely thought by Monday or Tuesday the new man would be, you know, announced and installed into the position.
Well, we've got plenty of comments coming in. If you want to get involved in the conversation, please fire them in. I've got a few good ones for you. First of all, Mark says Russell Martin, as he took the Leicester job, he was a name thrown about. Reported down south he might be on the verge of being the new Foxes manager.
Leicester want him, Daniel, I think that's clear. I don't think Ruud van Nistelrooy's officially left.
He's not, no.
Yet. There's loads going on at Leicester. I mean, we were reading yesterday about potential points deductions due to financial fair play and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that's done yet. I think Leicester would definitely like to try and get him, but we know that Rangers have spoken to him, and I think Russell Martin, I think the Rangers job would appeal to him a lot more than the Leicester job.
Do you think?
I think so. I think so.
Whoever takes over Leicester, they'd be looking at going right back up, wouldn't they?
And listen, that's what. Listen, he's got a proven track record in that in terms of.
Hold on, Leicester not have a points reduction?
Well, that's what Scott was saying. It's not nothing official yet, but they think they probably will.
That's the chat. So it might be a difficult situation to get into. I don't listen.
But then he gets a free season.
Yeah, well, and also you've got parachute payments and stuff. I mean, there'll still be a decent amount of money floating about to go and try and get them back up. But I still think Rangers appeals more to Russell Martin. He's spoken to the club. As far as we're aware, he hasn't heard anything back. It's just a case of wait and see. And that I suppose ties in with what Rangers are saying. They've spoken to several candidates, but they haven't chosen a preferred.
Do you know what would worry me about Russell Martin, Scott? Apart from the fact that, you know, he's got his fingerprints all over the second worst team in the history of the Premier League, right?
It's true,
it's just
spot
a
on.
fact. But he also said, and he admitted it himself, as a player, he really struggled to deal with the enormity and the environment and the intensity of being a Rangers player in the short time that he was there. And he did look as if he was struggling with it. If he struggled with it as a player, how's he got to deal with it as a manager?
Did he say that?
I think he did, yeah. I think he said that previously.
He's lost the manager now.
He has admitted that he was a terrible Rangers player.
That was one of the worst Rangers teams ever he walked in.
He was at a bad time. Colin Harrison says, think the new owners have their eye on someone and maybe he's under contract still. Maybe that's why we're not getting any definitive news on one name.
Well, that's always a possibility that it's somebody that's not been mentioned. Has to be a possibility.
Mark says he'd go for Gareth Southgate. I don't know how likely I see that happening. El Hadji Diouf says Muscat's perfect for the job. He's one name that just hasn't been mentioned at all in the running first, which previously he was.
He was right in the running. He was involved in the interview process. I actually thought that he would have been the best bet last time around as well. Out of the three, that was Lampard, Muscat and Clement. And I actually thought that Muscat had the best credentials for that job. I was very surprised that they went for Clement. You can see why I was surprised, given how it all panned out. And yes, if you've got a database, and if the last time you used this database to identify certain individuals, Kevin Muscat being one of them, as a guy that got down to the final three, it doesn't make much sense to me, other than you're looking at new people in charge, new sort of decision-making process. But you would have thought you would at least have referred to what went on the last time and the kind of pros and cons.
You know what's worth mentioning, it kind of ties in with that? Rangers haven't just been looking for a manager for the past 2 weeks.
Oh, aye.
They've like 6 months
to
go and identify a manager. They've constantly said the new managerial appointment is separate isn't dependent on the takeover. That was the line that came out a couple of weeks ago. So I understand that obviously 49ers Enterprises, Andrew Kavanagh, Greta Steinson, they're on board now and will no doubt have a big influence on the next appointment. But you'd still think it'd be a bit further on, with 6 months to identify guys, maybe speak to one or two. Even since the Americans came to the fore with your story, you'd think they would be. It would be moving. Because it does seem as if they're still at that point where we're still thinking about it.
As you say, Keith, if it's not this week, we're then pretty much into June. Champions League qualifiers, 4 or 5 weeks away? I mean, Rangers.
I think they're due back training the 23rd of June.
Aye, I mean, Rangers is okay, says he still thinks it's going to be Ancelotti.
But Ancelotti's going away with his dad.
He says this, he says he can't do the 2 friendlies with his dad for Brazil. We need him here yesterday. Time is now of the essence. It's a fair point.
It's a fair point, but I don't know why people are now grasping at this idea. As I said yesterday, he's had a really privileged upbringing and education, Davide Ancelotti, no doubt about it. But having nice experiences doesn't make you experienced. I keep going to come back to that. He's had lovely experiences. It sounds like great fun, doesn't it? Going around Real Madrid and Napoli and Bayern Munich. Sounds amazing. But it doesn't make him experienced. And right now, if I was Rangers easy okay, I'd be looking at this going, the idea of having a novice coming in so late on when so much work needs to be done with so little time to do it, and then, you know, not just assessing what the squad is, but then dismantling it if you're doing it properly, dismantling it, starting it all again, and you want a guy he hasn't got one game under his belt as a manager, making these big calls, these decisions.
That's the point. I mean, it's not about experience as such, it's about being a manager. We keep hearing this story about Ancelotti, about the night against Bayern Munich when he urged his dad to put Joselu on in the Champions League, and obviously it worked a treat for them, and that's fine. If that hadn't worked out, it's no on him, it's on
Carlo. Probably don't hear at the times he urged.
And how many times did he go, Dad? Carlos told him to sit down, son.
It's when you're the main man, it's a totally different ballgame.
David Gillespie says Rangers will wait till Celtic win the cup to grab the headlines. Distinct possibility, maybe.
If that is a distinct possibility, then they're not doing it right. Because Rangers have got bigger issues than trying to, you know, steal a little bit of Celtic's headlines, or, you know, Rangers just need to concentrate on Rangers and the things that Rangers need to do.
I agree.
I wouldn't be moving things around simply because, you know, you might take a bit of gloss off. You won't take any gloss off Celtic winning the treble.
No.
The Celtic fans
care.
will not care.
Not
They'll
a
celebrate their treble. It makes no difference.
Chip says it doesn't matter who they get, it'll be sacked within a year. John says the 49ers are behind the 8 ball already. Right off next season already, Bears. That's a wee bit premature, but you can see where he's coming from.
It's premature, but I mentioned that to Keith today, just in terms of the timing. No, as we've said, there's not a lot of time, and they need to be careful that it doesn't get to a point where you're looking at next season and thinking it's going to be too early to go and make an impact and go and seriously challenge for a title. And that would be a tragedy for the Rangers fans who last season had to put up with that, with the whole Ibrox fiasco and having to go to Hampden, and
the season was written off.
Budgets change. I mean, literally, the season was written off. Philippe Clement wrote it off himself practically when he said, "You'll see the best of us in November, December." You're like,
all right, good.
You'll be 9 points behind. The season's done.
Aye. Well, before we move on for this, right, we've got a comment here from Scott Lindsay who says, this stuff is great for you guys in the media. You guys, is it great? Do you enjoy it?
The last couple of days I've not enjoyed particularly.
It's tough.
There's too much stuff flying around that's deliberately fake stuff. Kind of non-information and just stuff that you kind of, as I said earlier, you end up doubting. Spoken to this guy and he's adamant that's this, and then you see something and it's somebody equally adamant, but so then you've just got to go through the filter process.
That's the biggest problem.
You go through the filter process and you have to go back to the point is, wait a minute, I know this guy, I've known this guy for years, his info's spot on. I don't care if it completely opposes the other information that's coming out there. You just go with what you know and who you know and trusted sources, and you try and tiptoe your way through the minefield.
Aye.
Because there's so much flying about right now. It's not unusual, because every time there's a situation at Rangers managerial changeovers, and there's been a few of them over the years, that there is an intensity around it, and sometimes the club don't handle it just as cleanly. In fact, very often, I'll reword that, the club don't handle it just as cleanly as they should do, which helps to intensify the speculation, and the rumour mill starts flying a little bit faster than before. But it's where we are.
It's totally different to years ago, though. And I mean, you'll know better than me, but the social media.
What are you saying? But what does that mean?
Well, you're a couple of years old.
Oh, you'd have seen what it was like when Jock Stein left Celtic, wouldn't you?
No, but just that instant nature of it. If you put something out there and there's a shred of it that somebody disagrees with or doesn't think's right, you know about it within seconds, don't you? There was never that. I don't think there was ever that type of pressure, 10, 15 years ago. As Jacko says, you would speak to the people you trusted, you'd gather up the info, and you would weigh everything up, and if you were confident enough,
but you're not getting instant contradictions.
Exactly. That's a big problem.
Darren Barnes says Keith Jackson, the Rangers manager. Confirm or deny it?
Well, there's a new rumour that's just started. I'll need to go and check. I'll need to go and speak to trusted sources before I can comment on that one.
I'll write that up.
I'm still banned for Ibrox. I'm not the manager. I've been banned for Ibrox since Pedro Caixinha was in charge.
Banned for the
Is that actually true?
Aye.
banned for the press box. You can still
Aye,
win it.
still
But
Coop in the comment section says he's fed up with this. Can we move on? Sorry, Coop. We'll get moving.
Aye. Okay, Coop.
Away from Rangers Hearts, they've signed a player today, Alex. If I can pronounce this,
Good luck.
Kazidris. That might be wrong. 24-year-old winger. He comes from Slovakian top flight. He scored 14 goals, I think, last season for the.
You're not about to ask us
Metlev.
what we thinking.
What I was going to say is, right, I don't know why this is based on very little. Derek McInnes is obviously getting his shopping underway already. Do you know one player who I think...
is he though?
That sounds to me as if that was...
That can't be a Derek McInnes.
No.
I think so, no? That's very out of left field.
That has to be
That has
Jamestown.
nailed down.
Yeah, he was linked to the club well before Derek McInnes was at the job.
One man that I do think will be a Derek McInnes signing, or he'll certainly try, Sam Dalby. What do you think? I think that screams Derek
Hearts.
McInnes Hearts all
I
over
think
it.
you're right. Aye, but
That'd be a great signing for
there'll be
Hearts.
competition there, I think.
Aye. He's been released by Wrexham, isn't he? Or he's leaving Wrexham.
I think Steve Bruce was at the Dundee United game, not at the weekend, the week before. Blackpool manager, obviously, looking at him. And when you hit the numbers Dalby's hit this season on loan, you're going to have people in for him. But, I mean, I don't know if the player would fancy staying in Scotland. He's obviously been a success in the Premiership.
I think he's enjoyed himself in Scottish football.
100%.
Scott. I get the feeling he'd be up for that. And by the way,
McInnes, exact type of centre forward he's looking for, isn't he?
Yeah.
Some people saying Dalby's not as good as Simon Murray. Craigie says Hearts will sign Danny Armstrong. Mark also saying that Stuart Finlay will be going to Hearts from Kilmarnock. I mean, they've taken their manager. I can't imagine Billy Bell will be too receptive to a phone call. Can we get your best players?
I think Armstrong and Finlay would probably be the two.
I think so.
I suppose David Watson as well, but he's a bit younger. I think he's in a longer kind of contract. But Finlay and Armstrong. Armstrong's obviously out of contract. The only thing about Finlay, I mean, I've no doubt Derek McInnes would want him there. But it's not that long ago they signed Jamie McCart, left-sided centre back.
Good point, aye.
So he's going to need to wait up. I think it's the boys at Steinvender's not been there that long as well. So he's got a bit of restructuring there today with that squad, Derek McInnes. But no doubt Finlay and Armstrong are two that he'll consider.
Elsewhere tonight, it's the Europa League final. Now, I know there's obviously no Scottish interest. There's a little bit of a link though with Ange Postecoglou. Did you guys see his press conference yesterday? Actually,
Seen part of it.
aye.
I know what the headlines were out of it, but I didn't actually see any VT.
Well, let's have a little look. If you've not seen it, here's a little take from Ange's press conference yesterday.
That depends on your outlook, Dan, but I'll tell you one thing, irrespective of tomorrow, I'm not a clown. I never will be, mate. And you're really disappointed that you would use such terminology about a person who, for 26 years, without any favours from anyone, has worked his way to be in a position where he's leading out a club in a European major competition. For you to suggest that somehow us not being successful means that I'm a clown, not really sure how to answer that question. My future is short, mate. Wouldn't be the first person who changes jobs, mate. We all change jobs. I'm sure you've had more than one job. My future's assured. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a great life. I'll keep on winning trophies till I finish, wherever that is. So don't worry about my future, mate. My future is not entwined with anything. Right? My future is assured, provided, God willing, my health remains and my beautiful family is beside me and my friends. There's nothing wrong with my future, mate.
The context of the clown comment, for anyone who doesn't know, is that a guy at the Evening Standard had written a piece saying he's either going to be a clown or a hero after the Europa League final. I thought it was great the way Ange clocked him right away and pulled him up for it. I think he's had to put up with a lot of nonsense, Ange. They've been rotten in the league, but I don't know.
I thought it was a bit disrespectful, the word clown.
Aye.
I mean, I've not read the piece, but no, there's got to be another way of wording it. I mean, we know Ange is walking this
Product
fine
placement
line.
here, sorry.
We know he's walking a fine line in terms of this final, because if he wins it, somebody said just if he wins it, he'll go down as Spurs' most successful manager
In the
ever,
modern era,
probably.
aye.
But if he loses off the back of a horrendous Premier League campaign, was it like 23 defeats or something? The league's going to finish 16th or 17th. I mean, horrendous. So he will, if they lose the game, he'll be regarded as a failure after two seasons. But no, to refer to him as a clown if he loses a game, I thought, given what he's done in the game, given his experience, I thought it was a wee bit disrespectful.
Well, you just used the word there. Just used the word failure. The deliberate use of the word clown. There's a sort of malevolence to that. I think. So. And I think he's absolutely well within his rights to call a guy out for that.
Oh, definitely. Aye.
And he's right. It's totally disrespectful. And do you know something? I am so rooting for him tonight.
Aye. It would be good to. You said about the Ange mic drop. Just to go into the press conference for the Europa League. Right, I'm off. I think whether he wins or loses, he's probably going tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds as if he knows he's going.
Aye.
Yeah.
Sounds like that, talking about the future and don't worry about me, everybody changes jobs. Sounds as if he knows he's going, no matter what.
I'm not sure. I think he's been playing this sort of line for a while now, Big Ange. And he's sort of saying, look, do you know what? I'll win trophies. I always win trophies my second season, mate. Here's what I'm going to do. And I think he knows he gives the hierarchy, Joe Lewis, an issue. If he becomes the first manager, Spurs manager, in how long is it?
They won the League Cup in 2008.
Right.
But before that, I mean, I think it's 1 in 50 odd years or something.
Yeah, and this is different level from the League Cup.
Aye.
Even though, by the way, you do get the feeling down in England that they almost turn their nose up at the Europa League, don't they?
do.
Because it's not
Until they're in the final.
Aye.
It's a massive game.
Yeah, but do you know what? I think everything that's been through this season, I think some of it has been personal. I think it's been OTT. It has been a horrendous season, and I'll go further than that and say, do you know, there might be an element of Big Ange which was always doomed to go this way. That when he came to Celtic, he produces this Ange ball, and nobody can work it out. And people are scratching their head. How did you stop this? This is just incredible, and it's coming at us from all angles. Such ferocious intensity. Nobody up here could really get a tactical plan together to work out how best to stop this, how to counter this. I always felt he would get the first half of his first season in the English Premier League where the same rule would apply. Where people are going, what was that? How did
He was top of the league.
Exactly.
No, he was flying it,
but it's so deep are the technical kind of pulls behind every coach. And you've got guys that can just say, right, we've got Tottenham next weekend. I want you to go study these tapes, come up with something. Mm-hmm. I always felt, and let's be honest about it, there's a higher level of coaches and a higher level of player.
Yep.
So I always felt that after midway through his first season, people might start to work it out. My biggest concern for Ange, and by the way, you can work it out and you can try and counter it, but you're not always going to be able to stop it. And I think that was clearly what Ange had in his head when he went to Spurs. I think the biggest problem he's had in this second season is that his own players don't look to be buying into it the way they were buying into it previously. I've watched some of these games. And it's not the way that Ange Postecoglou sets his team up.
Yep.
You're looking at players thinking, well, do you know what? In his system, you're meant to be doing X, but you're actually doing Y here. You look a bit lazy. You look a bit disinterested. I've said before, Ange Postecoglou runs these guys into the ground because they have to be physically ready to do what he's asking them to do. But Tottenham's injury list reflects that. Celtic's injury list, when he first made the changes at Celtic, reflected that. Mm-hmm. And I think it might be easier to impose that style among, in a Scottish environment where guys aren't earning 300 grand a week and driving Lamborghinis. And I think if you try and do that to the kind of players with the wealth that they've got down there, they just sit and say, do you know what, mate? I'll see you later.
His system and his style Jack was right. It's completely dependent on buy-in for the players. Completely dependent.
And he got that at
if he,
Celtic.
if he doesn't get that 100%
at Celtic, and do you know what? Do you know what I suspect? He'll get it 100% tonight, because these players have got a chance to win a European trophy. I'll bet you he gets complete buy-in tonight.
Mark says he wants him to win as long as he doesn't raid Celtic with the Champions League money he gets. And Craigie says if Spurs win tonight, he hopes Ange walks out in a big clown suit. That would be good. That would be very good. So who do you think is going to win?
It's going to be fascinating, I think, isn't it?
I think Spurs. I think Spurs will raise their game. I think Manchester United are an absolute gang, and they are.
They're pretty right now.
And they've got a manager who refuses, and it's similar because you get two managers that are simply refusing to change their style. But if I'm going to bet who's going to come out on top of that, I think it would be Ange and his style, and for that simple reason, the players will be motivated to produce tonight because there's a European trophy on the line. Manchester United, on the other hand, they simply don't have the players to play as Amarin is insisting that they play. And that's a very different thing. At least you know with Spurs, when they're on it, when they want to play for the manager, he's got the right players there to suit the system. Amarin is looking at a squad full of players, picking entirely the wrong system for them, and then stubbornly refusing to send them back out there, and they can't play it. We do know that Spurs can play the system that Ange wants them.
I'd love to see Spurs winning. My only thing, I do think Man United have got more match winners in the team.
Casemiro's never lost a final. 8 games, 8 finals.
He always comes up with big goals. Casemiro. I think Fernandes is brilliant. I think Fernandes head and shoulders above anything in that Man United dressing room. Thrives on big games, produces big moments.
And they have been decent in the Europa League. Scored 7 against Bilbao, 7 against Lyon.
Yep. Listen, I even think guys like Ahmad and Garnacho and that can produce something. There's no many match winners in that Spurs team.
See, I'm going to flip that back on you. Amad Diallo, right? Amad Diallo legend. Is one of the most brightest attacking talents in Manchester United squad. Well, what does that tell you about Manchester United? That was a boy that couldn't get a game in a Rangers side, which... Yeah, a Rangers side, by the way, that even when there was about 42 injuries, he was still on the substitute bench. So, Man United, honestly, and, you know, I can understand Amarim, he's been really stubborn about it, but there's a real responsibility on him for the sake of himself and his own credibility to go in there and say, right, okay, you guys can't do this. Let's find a way that you can do it, and we'll try and get some results, and we'll try and just steady the ship and get through it the summer. Instead of that, he's just went, no, this is what I do.
Aye.
And guys are looking and going, I can't do that.
Aye, never done that before. No.
Yeah, and Amad Diallo is kind of, was at the time when he came into the job, the guy that United fans seem to be pinning their hopes on. Aye. That tells you how bad that United side is. So, yeah.
So, United are won too.
Come on, Big Ange.
Well, whoever wins, we'll be back to talk about it all tomorrow.
And it could be an absolute car crash.
I think
it'll
be like 4 each penalties.
Or it could be 0-0.
It could be
because they are so bad that they could kind of cancel each other out with being rubbish. And it could be the most... but I don't think so. I think it's going to go the other way.
I agree.
I think we're going to get a great spectacle. But even, do you know what? Even if it is a really bad and the standards really... It's still going to be a fascinating watch. Because you need to know how this ends.
Aye, absolutely. Well, as I say, however it ends, we'll be back to talk about it all tomorrow on Hotline Live. Thank you very much for all of your comments, as ever. We really appreciate it. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can do so from 6 p.m. tomorrow, when perhaps we'll have a managerial update from Rangers. Who knows? But either way, hope you can join us then. Scott, Keith, shall we go and get a pint?
Let's go.
Thanks for watching. Cheers.